everyone, in this video we will learn when to clap and when not to clap in different types of music concerts. Have you ever felt anxious about clapping at an inappropriate timing in classical music concert? Well, certainly I have. I know it's a stress factor for many people when they attend to classical music concert. The rule of thumb for clapping at the classical music is that you clap at the completion of entire work. The problem with this is that different genres of classical music have different numbers of movements. For example, symphonies typically have 4 movements, sonatas have 3 movements, concertos have 3 movements, and there are a bunch of single movement works like Rhapsody and Tone Poem, and there are a bunch of multiple movement works such as Suite and you name, and all of these are just typical expectations. There are always exceptions, and some of them connect movements together, and it's really hard to tell when to clap. And it's even tricky for professional musicians to tell sometimes if we don't have a clear outline of the work's formation. So what I do and what I recommend you to do is to look over the program notes before the performance. Program notes are these little booklets that they give you when you enter the concert hall, and I know there are a lot of advertisements in that booklet, but if you read through you will find some section called today's performance or something like that, and it will show you how many movements are there in each work, and that can be your guide. But the most carefree way to know when to clap in classical music is just to wait until someone else who seems like they know when to clap start to clap, and then you can just join the crowd. Right before the Corona quarantine started, I attended this local symphony concert, and this concert had a huge name violinist visiting to play a concerto with a symphony. And behind me were the 2 young men. They seemed like high school students, and they were so excited to attend their classical music concert. They were so excited to see this famous violinist, and they talked on and on about how classical music is so great and they love learning their instrument and all these things. And I was really happy to see the younger generation getting excited about classical music performance. But when the concert started, these 2 young men started to clap at the end of each movement throughout the entire performance, and no one told him anything, and actually all the audience joined them every time they started clapping. So the concert was like half music and half clapping and although it was a very heartwarming and pleasant experience for me personally, but it made me realize the importance of the audience in creating this whole performance experience. You might say that it's such a stuffy rule or etiquette to follow, like who are you to tell me when to clap or when not to clap? But there are actually some practical reasons why these etiquettes exist. So the first is because of the flow. Not always, but a lot of times these multi-movement works have a continuing story scheme or emotional scheme throughout the entire work. So if the audiences clap in between the movements, that might interrupt the flow or the connection between the movements, and that can actually diminish the quality of performance and listening experience. Also, some composers like Beethoven were super particular about tempo relations between the movements. For example, his first movement might require ta 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 for tempo, and second movement has to be ta 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 ta. They are connected. Ta 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 ta. So the audience might not realize the relations, but the performers have to be aware of that relations, and they try to perfect that tempo relations. That's one of their thing to accomplish. And if the audience claps in between the movements, the performers might lose their connection to the tempo, and that can make the performer very unstable and anxious about the performance. And in the performer's perspective, when we are on the stage, especially our oral senses reach like superhuman level, and sometimes we can hear everything and anything that's going on in audience sit, and something like unexpected claps in between movements can really affect the concentration and flow of the performer. And especially if the performer is less established or a student, then a lot of times the performer plan to use the recording of that performance as their portfolio material. So if the audience is clapping between the movements and that affects the performer's tempo or the flow, or just having the clap in between, that itself will not allow this performer to use this material for their professional use. And the second reason is even more businessy and practical. So producing a concert actually involves massive amount of planning and arrangement. First, the musicians. So if you think about a symphony concert, there are like 80 employees on the stage, the musicians, and they are all highly trained, expensive human resources to hire. And because the musicians union is quite strong in our time, just 1 minute over than the contracted time for rehearsal or the performance can cause a huge amount of money to the symphony. And there are staff members, engineers, and all these different people involved in running this concert smoothly. So that's one factor. Also, a lot of times symphonies don't own the hall, they rent the hall. So there's a time limit to how much time that they can stay in the hall. So for these reasons, the conductors, the music directors, and the administrators are very careful about their program planning, and we cannot count in all this random clapping. If you think about it, if the audience claps after each movement, then it's extra 1 or 2 minutes to every single pause, and that can easily add up to 7 extra more minutes needed for the concert. And 7 minutes is actually, it doesn't sound that much, but when you are in the mindset of concert planning or programming, that's a huge amount of time. So it's very important that the audiences don't clap whenever, but rather follow the concert etiquette so that everything can be ran smoothly as planned. But in the jazz performance, it's actually quite the opposite. You clap as much as you want, whenever you want, kind of. To begin with, the setting itself is quite different. At least in my experience, jazz performances were done in like jazz bar or jazz cafe with drinks involved, food involved, and you can whisper small talks here and there. And it's a lot more casual and laid back than classical music concert. And the format of jazz performance is that the ensemble plays the tune once in the beginning, so the audience know which tune they are listening to, and they move on to this solo section where each players have the opportunity to solo. And in this section, they show off their skills, their musicalities, their own interpretations, and it's actually a very respectful gesture to clap after each solo. It's like showing the appreciation to the performance art. And also, if the soloist did something super cool during their solo, then you can just burst into clapping, and the jazz performance love that interaction. But I advise you not to clap too loudly, because sometimes when the clap is too loud, it is hard for the musician to listen to himself, and sometimes that can be really challenging or nervous. So just be gentle with your clap, but show the appreciation as frequently as possible in jazz performance. So in the next video, I'll go over different genres of classical music and how many movements are there for each genre, so that you can have general ideas about when to clap when you attend classical music concerts. I hope this video inspires you to go out of your comfort zone to attend a classical music concert or jazz concert and enjoy the beauties of diverse cultures and your life fully. Thank you for watching my video, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!